And this is a response to anti-Semitism from a member of the Jewish community, somebody of Jewish descent, somebody whose level of religiosity may not be to the liking of a lot of members of the Jewish community, but here I am. I'm going to respond to anti-Semitism, to YouTube channels and websites that have made all kinds of claims about Jewish world conspiracies and alleged belief in Jewish racial superiority. And so I haven't seen a whole lot in the way of response, and I think that that's unfortunate, because I'm actually going to respond. This is a response to various claims. I cannot get to all of them. I was not there when Jesus was supposedly executed, or that's how the story goes. And so I cannot say who did it or what happened. It's also been 2,000 years. I would think that, yeah, well, there's been enough time, but that's really neither here nor there. First of all, to preface, the objection to the term anti-Semitism, people have claims that they say that it's really not the same thing as anti-Judaism. It was the anti-Jews who came up with the term. So there was an actual journal of anti-Semitism coming out of the Vatican. So take it up with them. The term stuck because it came from them. They're the ones who came up with it, so it's not our term. Jews didn't think up the term. It came from them. This is also not going to be about Zionism or Israel. If you're not bored about news stories from the Middle East, then you're not alive. But they're also, because they're different issues. The issue of Zionism is not the same thing as the issue of Judaism, or are Jews a race or not a race, or did Jews kill Jesus or not? They're not. It's not the same thing at all. The issue of Zionism in its earliest form is, do you believe that Jews are a nation and have the right to self-determination? There are, however, a variety of opinions on that within the Jewish community. Left-wing Jews tend to be not so favorable to it. There are segments of the Orthodox who are not in favor of it. And yet they still consider themselves Jews. So that's another video for another topic. I'm going to get to those allegations that I can in this brief time. So I have a little note here. If you see me looking at it, it's because I need to order my thoughts. I usually don't do this, but I'm going to do this today. The claim that Jews believe that we're racially superior. Well, Jews are not a race. It's very simple. You have white Jews, you have Middle Eastern Jews, African Jews, you have converts. Look at the book of Ruth. So Jews never have been a race. Yes, it did speak of Abraham's seed at one point, but if one follows the Torah or the Bible, at some point, the Hebrew nation became a nation. And once one becomes a nation, there is a naturalization procedure. People join, just like American citizenship. People who were never here during the American Revolution join. Already by biblical times, there were people who had converted from all over. So how can you have racial superiority doctrines if you are not a race and never did claim to be? Then there's the equal and opposing view that because we're not a race, that therefore the straw man that we are a race is knocked down, therefore there is no Jewish people because the Jews are not a race. Sometimes certain replacement theology Christian sects will quote something out of the book of Revelations that, those who are Jews who say they're not. Well, first of all, that verse implies a context in which it actually is talking about biblical Hebrews in that verse. The Jews who say they are not actually are biblical Hebrews, and yet they're biblical Hebrews who don't accept Jesus, obviously. But if we're not biblical Hebrews today, then it wouldn't apply to us anyway, making the whole claim contradictory. However, it's a claim that is easily knocked down by simply what I stated at the beginning, that we never did claim to be a race. We're not a race. It's a religion. It's a nationality. A nationality is going to be like any number of nations that have people coming in, they come out. Conversions. The Khazar thing is overdone. Most of the conversions in the Middle Ages probably were from Europe and from the Slavic countries. So, but yeah, no. I probably date back to Abraham somewhere on my maternal line, but already when my mother married my father, He's Roman Catholic, so I'm even less quote-unquote Semitic than I was. But, okay, how many modern Americans date back to 1776? And yet, modern Americans are part of a nation. Okay, then the one that really chaps my hide, and that is the claim that Jews control international finance, and in controlling international finance, don't want to engage in work and just want international finance. First of all, I want to preface by stating, as quite a number of my videos have been about the financial system and its corruptions. I've done videos on the Trilateral Commission. I've been very critical. I've done videos on industrial republicanism, where I talk about the idea of a need for a new monetary system, what I call the Tesla economy. You can search for those. Believe me, I'm very much in favor of reforms like debt-free currency and a whole lot of other reforms that I've done over the years. However, the claim that all Jews are bankers, that most bankers are Jews, these are claims that have come down from an earlier time, perhaps hundreds of years ago, when yes, there were Jewish moneylenders, and yes, it was something of an occupation for Jews. These are not those days. And if you go back to those days, I'm sorry for rushing, but I'm running low on time. If you go back to those days, what you find is that was created by the church. Jews were forbidden to do other occupations. So when you're forbidden to do other occupations, you're going to do the best at the occupation that you have. Most Jews are not bankers today because other occupations were open, including physicists, doctors, electrical engineers, construction workers, the firemen, the garbage man, the president, all the stuff we dreamed about when we were kids. These are all open occupations. And when there are open occupations, the old kind of feudal monopoly system broke down. Now, in the modern capitalist economy, there are injustices. And a lot of the videos that purport to talk about Jewish power would be better, quote-unquote Jewish power, as they call it, would be better to actually focus on the injustices. That these injustices are ubiquitous, they involve a lot of people. Corrupt banking involves Jews, Protestants, Catholics, Muslims, you name it, all over the globe. By contrast, the vast overwhelming majority of my family members, on my mother's family members, are productive. They're people who work. They're people who work hard. They've built up businesses, and they've worked hard doing that. They were upright, morally upright people. For those of you who do not like capitalism or do not agree with that system, I understand a lot of your concerns. There have also been many Jewish labor leaders and people who've also stood up to injustices. A lot of the very ideologies that you might champion actually had a lot of Jews who were at the origins of those ideologies. Some of you may like Emma Goldman. She was of Jewish descent. She was not religious. On the issue of, I cited the book of Ruth. A lot of you, and this is my final thing I'm going to say. I'm sorry this is a little rushed. I tried my best. But a lot of you might say, well, I don't believe in the Torah. That the Torah is this, and the Torah is bad, and the Torah is all these things. Look, the Torah is like any other people's history. Oral history, written history. You have Native American oral history. You have other written histories. There are various levels of belief. There are very religious Jews who believe in it. There are people like myself, I believe in the concept of a God, but it's more universalist. There are people who are non-religious. However, I would say that I would rather believe in the Torah than I would believe in some concept of race that only goes back a few hundred years. It only goes back to Bacon's Rebellion, and it only goes back probably to the American South and to the 1700s. And so those who talk about a Jewish race, or they talk about an Aryan race, or that Jews are not really a Jewish race, or all the rest of it, they're talking nonsense. I'd rather believe in the Torah, which never mentions modern concepts of race at all, than believe in that. CHistrue,